obavljaš tako da radiš tamo, ali zapravo je potpuno legitimno. Kao kažeš, dobiš tu potvrdu.
Reassurance.
Can you time, please? Perfect. We have a timekeeper. Perfect.
Hi guys, welcome to round one of Skopje Open. My name is Andre, I'll be your chair. I'm an independent edge previously from National University of Singapore. Paneling with me, I've got Stefan. Before we start, I just want to check the speaking order. In opening gov, we have Melbourne V.
Alexander.
Speaking first.
Yep.
Okay. And opening up, Clemson, Scott speaking first. And Cambridge A.
John speaking first.
And Real Pack A.
Ayala speaking first.
Ayala speaking first. Okay, cool. Alright, without further ado, on the motion that reverts the rise of point 2.0, can I invite the Prime Minister to begin the case that stands in his name?
Okay, thank you for the floor. Honorable panel, what we want to clarify from the get-go is that this is not the banning of pornography. Now, we recognize that there are good and bad things coming from pornography. We don't want to ban it as a whole. What we want to differentiate is why is porn 2.0 worse than any other porn, like commercial sites and stuff like that. We want to clarify that all the harms that come from the pornography in general are more shown within porn 2.0, whereas the benefits of the pornography are not that much shown in porn 2.0. So coming into the first couple of things, what are the general problems with pornography, and we're going to explain why they are more shown in porn 2.0. Well, the first, pornography tends to create some stereotypization, like women should be submissive, women should always come in, it's always up to them, like racial stereotypes depending on different types of porn. It also creates an unreal expectation of what sex is, in a sense that what we should do and what we shouldn't do to have a good sex, whereas that doesn't happen in reality. Also, it influences our real life in a sense that most popular pornography, for say, gay porn is bareback without condoms, and it influences a lot of people in real life to not use them, which is kind of harmful for them. We see that all of those things are more problematic when it comes to porn 2.0. Now, the first thing we want to tell you is why it is more harmful, is because it has far greater outreach. Now, far more people can view them. Not all people are able or want to pay for commercial sites for majority of porn to watch them. Now, we tell you that even those who even those who want to watch them tend to watch them far less simply due to the payments. We tell you that when more people watch these porns, more people are more prone to accept all those stereotypes, unreal expectations, and influence. We tell you that is harmful in the sense that our society is more influenced by the bad things of the pornography. Second thing is when it comes to how often we watch it. Like if you watch it less often than when it comes to porn 2.0, we tell you that you're less prone to accept those things. Why? Because when you watch it more and more often, we tell you that those things become more normalized for you. It becomes something that you should do simply because you watch it constantly and because that is what you accept it should be. Now, coming into the second thing, what would be the benefits and why do we regret porn 2.0 in a comparison to commercial porn? Well, it's easier to regulate commercial porn. Why? Well, we accept that not all problems in the world come from pornography, and it's not ultimate evil, but we do accept that there are some problems. Most of them we can regulate when we know the production where they came from, when we know where they originate from. We don't necessarily see that when it comes to porn 2.0. Now, those could be amateur porn, those could be porn that lost their watermarks, so we don't know what production is. We can lose track of it. Now, we tell you that commercial sites, we know what productions are. Now, when we can track them down, we are more prone to influence those things. We are more prone to accept the idea that we can change them. Now, when we recognize those things going too far, we tell you that we are more prone to change those things if we see they're harmful. Now, we don't speak about banning or anything like that. We do speak about changing, like lessening the amount of videos, of lessening like submissive videos, of lessening some unreal expectations that are shown through the porn. We tell you that all those things can be regulated if you know which production is more later on. Also, when it comes to discrimination of particular groups within the pornography, we tell you that all those discriminatory sites, and when we know the production, we can track down the discrimination. Not only that, we can hold somebody responsible for that discrimination. We tell you, when you can hold somebody responsible, you're more prone to tackle with the discrimination that happens within the porn industry. Now, why is that important? Because if we have more people who are less discriminated within the pornography, we tell you it's more beneficial not only for pornography as an industry, it is more beneficial for the society itself because it will receive less stereotypization. But before I go on, yes.
Yeah, do you have any examples of any time anyone in the porn industry was ever held accountable for discrimination against a specific group of people? Where was the lawsuit? When did that ever happen?
Well, couple of porn stars such as Stoya, such as Janet Jameson are usually speaking out about the bad things that happen in the porn industry. We tell you that those examples are more to be heard when we can tackle down where the problems originate from. We tell you those are the benefits we bring you. And such examples who are speaking out are more prone to be heard. And the final thing, we're going to talk about how it is unfair to the industry, people in the industry, and financial benefits that we lose from this. Now, when we have a lot of free porn going all over the place into porn 2.0, we tell you it's highly problematic to say it is fair to all the actors whose videos have been taken from the commercial sites onto the porn 2.0. Why? Well, more people don't pay for those videos, even though these people work within that industry. B, it is unfair to that industry to lose amount of profit simply because one person paid it, but then 5,000 or 5 million people view it. We tell you it is unfair to the industry that is supposed to be responsible for all the people within it. Moreover, we tell you that why do we feel that this brought the harm? Well, the rise of the porn 2.0 brought the rise of the free porn. We tell you all those bad things that are unfair to the industry were brought by the porn 2.0. All those things simply could have been avoided if we had lost the rise of that. Now, when it comes to the unfairness, we tell you it is more fair for the people who work, who use their time, who use their bodies, and who consent to the idea that their bodies should be shown in such a way that we need to be more fair to them and actually provide as much as possible to that industry in a sense of payments, in a sense of regulation, and in a sense of lessening stereotypes and discrimination. So for all the reasons, please propose this motion. Thank you.
The Prime Minister for that speech. And now to open the side of the opposition, I invite the Leader of Opposition. Thank you.
Archie and I want to talk about narratives. Narratives that you can upload with Porn 2.0, narratives that you can view with porn 2.0. We think that the change that has occurred in the porn industry because of porn 2.0 has led to wider diversity within pornography that doesn't get rid of all of the harms that they were talking about that are just apparent in porn as something that you can view, but has allowed a wider access for viewers to what sorts of porn they're watching, what sort of porn they're uploading. We think on our house, I'm going to talk about two different sides of this, uploaders and users, why it's beneficial for both of those, and in that instance, if it is beneficial for people who are uploading porn and people who are using porn, why we then don't regret it. This isn't a ban motion, it's a regret motion, right? Before that, 3 points of rebuttal, one for each of the arguments that we heard from the last speech. The first one is the outreach, right? He says that because porn 2.0 allows for users to upload their porn that's free, it's more widely accessible, that this means that the porn that they're viewing is more normalized and it makes you want to do things that more normal, like the discrimination and things that you see in porn are more normal and it's worse for users, right? That's the impact of his argument. That was the analysis on his argument. We think that on face, this isn't necessarily true. He didn't back up at all why porn 1.0 was less accessible other than saying that you had to pay for it, right? We think that the piracy that was a huge problem within porn 1.0 meant that it was or porn in general, porn industry, commercial porn, was absolutely anyone was able to view it. Piracy was a huge problem for porn. That's why porn 2.0 became a thing. That the piracy itself is what led to porn 2.0, users uploading their own things because there were different websites available for them to upload their own content. The fact that this piracy was so rampant means that anyone could watch any of this commercial, industrialized, not user uploaded porn information or clarification. Could upload any of this anytime and view it at any time. We don't think on face that this is true. Then, so that's why we don't think on face it's true. Second point of rebuttal to this point, we don't think that that's necessarily true. That because you view it more often, you're more normalized to the scenes of porn. We don't the kind of discrimination that happens in porn. You have to actually tell us why that's true. Is that POI? Oh, I have time. Don't do that. That's annoying. Second thing, right? Harder. His second argument, right, is that no, it's harder to regulate, right? He says that that because you don't know where porn 2.0 is coming from, that you can't regulate this. And I had a POI on this. So when has the porn industry been regulated before? When was porn 1.0 only commercial, only international? When was that regulated? His answer was well, look at Stoya, look at James Dean, the scandal that we're seeing that just happened recently, right? That Stoya has come out and said that James Dean has either raped or sexually assaulted me, and then we saw an influx of other porn stars saying that this is happening. That's not attached to his claim. His analysis was different from that example, right? His analysis was that the problem is the discrimination within porn that you view, and that's what normalizes you. That it's harder to shut down the discrimination that you see in the production side of it, not on the actual making of the porn, the view. So we don't think that a rape or sexual assault case is the same thing as the porn industry regulating itself to be less discriminatory in what it views or what views it shows. We don't think that's something that happens on either side of the house. Yes, it's harder to regulate, but it's not something that porn industry has been trying to do when it comes to discrimination within the porn industry. We actually think, and I'm going to get to this in my positive matter, that there's far better narratives, less discriminatory narratives with porn 2.0. Third point, he said, this was his last point that he kind of just threw away, right? That it just hurts the commercial porn industry that it isn't able to deal with the fact that porn is just something that you can get now, and that their profits, they're somehow more deserving of profits. We think this is largely assertive. He needs to tell us why we care about the efficacy of the porn industry, but we also think that has led porn to innovate. It has actually helped porn, industrial porn has taken advantage of the rise of porn 2.0 and does allow you to actually view some of that. So we don't think that this has hurt it necessarily, but even if it does, it's outweighed by the sort of narratives that we're going to get to in my positive matter, right, that I'm getting to right now. The first thing is why this is better for uploaders. What we want to tell you on our side of the house is that in two ways, this is better for people who can upload porn now, which they couldn't do when porn was just about industrialized, long form narratives between them, right? What does this actually have to do? We think that the first thing is that people now have a say on what sort of porn they can upload to be viewed, right? That if you are a black woman who would porn industry before only used abusive narratives of black women, that they liked rough sex and that they had to be abused by white men, and that's the narrative that you heard in porn. You are a black woman, you can upload, even if it is with an interracial couple that you're uploading porn, you can change that narrative. You can upload the sort of narrative that people are going to be viewing within porn. Because they don't think on either side of the house, you stop people from viewing. of porn. What we do on our side of the house, I'll get in a second, is actually change that narrative because uploaders have the ability to, like, when they are not being seen in the way that they like, can upload that porn in a way that presents sex that is not like discriminatory against them. Yeah.
So what sort of person realistically uploads their sort of pornographic images to the internet?
I think lots of people upload pornographic images to the internet, right? Like, it's not just people who want, like, have a fetishized view of porn. Like, lots of people want to express their sexuality, lots of people view porn, lots of people want to just upload whatever they want to. It's like the fact that there are so many sexting scandals, the fact that there are so many like celebrities with like photos, you know, like shows us that lots of people like to upload porn, want to express their sexuality in the public realm. We're fine with them doing that, especially when they can do that in a way that's less discriminatory. The narratives that are created from that are less discriminatory when we're talking about women, when we're talking about gay men, when we're talking about things like that. The second reason why this is better for uploaders is because, like, the first claim that I was talking about is how if the narrative that is being viewed for who you are is one that's discriminatory, you can have a better one. If there's not a narrative, if you aren't being shown in the porn industry, we think that now you can have who you want to be, your sexuality expressed within the porn industry, and that's something that's very valuable for uploaders. None of us in this room probably want to go watch videos of looners, right? Of people who only get sexual gratification from watching a balloon pop. Like, that's not something that the porn industry is ever going to show. But if you are a looner, it's someplace now because of Porn 2.0, you have the ability to upload that like sort of sexual gratification to be viewed. You create communities from that. Like, in many cases, this is the only place where those communities can be created, and something that is not available when we're only talking about industrialized commercial porn, something that we get on our side of the house exclusively for uploaders. That's why we don't regret this motion. Second part of this argument is, second argument is why this is better for users. Right? We think that on our side of the house, what we do is that not only can you upload and change the narrative, you can change the narrative that people are viewing, right? Like, you as a user now view different sorts of porn. So when he comes up here in his second argument and tells you that, like, no, that it normalizes bad forms of porn. No, when you're viewing different sorts of diverse narratives of porn, we think that that changes viewers' perceptions of ideal body norms, of racial stereotypes, of gay stereotypes, and everything, and that creates a better narrative for people in the long run. For those reasons, we're passionate about Twitter.
All right, I thank the legal office for their speech. And now, to communication of government, I invite the key practice.
Thank you for the floor. Two brief points of rebuttal. Firstly, I will claim that we're going to have more discriminatory in like conventional tax-paying porn industry. So basically, so first we know that is not true. We can see that pornography is probably going to be misogynist. It's probably going to be discriminatory toward different racial, sexual, and other minorities on both sides of the house. However, we believe that the comparative is that once you visit these sites and see that much of amateur videos that they claim are not discriminatory, you kind of, as a 12 or 13-year-old, get the confirmation that is something that is quite normal and is something that is happening in everyday life. So even though it is on both sides of the scale discriminatory, watching Johnny Sins and some of your favorite porn stars, you get the perception that is something far away. And even if that is misogynist, even if that is discriminatory, you still do not get the perception that it is something that is normal, that is common, that is happening in everyday life, that is going to justify you through your sexual life to act the way they act. The comparative is that once you see the amateur people, your peers, posting these kind of videos, and when you're surrounding them, you're probably going to justify all these kind of, you're probably going to justify all these kind of things. Regarding ideal body norms and breaking these kind of stereotypes, we tell that the conventional porn industry is already diverse enough because it tackles a lot of users. So you're probably going to get even the conventional websites going to get all the different types of body, all the different types of ethnicity, all the different diversity, because they tend to tackle the most users, the greatest amount of users, and it's not something of a big cost to have porn which content is diverse. So we do not believe that anything so we believe that not anything true is out there substantive. Now when it comes to regulation, how it is easier to regulate, it is quite clear that it is easier to regulate something that is not on the black market, something that is visible, something that pays taxes, something that has office in the center of your city. But the problem is that as long as we have this rise of 2.0 websites, there is no political will and no political capability of doing this kind of thing. Now, why is that? For one simple reason: because even if you regulate these kind of things, even if you make all porn actors wear condoms, even if you have more diversity, less stereotypization, you're still going to have these wild websites which are going to impose this kind of misogyny, discriminatory, or any other measures, which means that it diminishes our political capability of regulating pornography and fixing all those bad things that already exist with it. But secondly, even if we did have these kind of things, we would still have this kind of popular, vastly popular websites which are going to be discriminatory. So even if there were, we still think that we're quite losing this benefit on their side of the house. But however, let's speak about another thing, about consent and about posting of uploaders, as they were trying to say. First, the problem with 2.0 sites, what they forget is you usually have they often have kind of revenge porn, where often people post people post their videos even without consent of another person. However, I believe this is highly problematic because it harms body integrity, because unconsensual exposes your body in something that you perceive as a matter of your privacy. However, they can say we could regulate that. The problem is that these things are really hard to regulate. We have lots of examples of celebrities whose, for example, videos were uploaded that they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to do it. We also have the great number of amateur porns. So yes, this is highly problematic. However, even if it would be able to shut down these kind of videos which harm your body integrity, we see that for a short period of time that they exist on this, the great number of people is going to be able to see it. So even if it was possible to regulate, we still have this great harm. We still have this great harm on our side of the house. However, the third point, how it is unfair towards industry, they totally diminish the point that these are people who gave consent. These are people who pay taxes for doing the job they're doing as acting in conventional Koreans. So really it is highly illegitimate and highly unfair towards those people. Other people earn money towards, for example, commercials on this website just by posting videos they don't have license to, they didn't pay taxes to, etc., etc. It means that more people are earning money on the fact that someone has decided to expose its body into sexual relations. Well, this is highly problematic. So yeah, closing.
So your analysis states, right now in pornography, if I'm watching gay porn, I'm going to see perfect sex without a condom. Why do you believe there are incentives in the industry right now to only view these kinds of porn? Why do you believe there are incentives in the industry right now to only view these kinds of porn?
We do not believe that there are incentives in industry to view. We believe that probably viewers want to watch the porn which are without condoms. However, the comparative is that it is a lot easier to make conventional porn sites to make their actors use porn, on the other hand, regarding the judges. So yes, we believe that what viewers want to view is going to be discriminatory. We simply want to change that. We want political capability to change that. Even if viewers want something, we say that it is still possible. It is still possible to regulate. So regarding this unfairness and discrimination. So what have we brought to today's debate? We tell you first that it is a lot easier to regulate. But if you say that's not comparative, you say that there's more political capability. Secondly, we tell you, even if as they conceded, it is discriminatory on both sides of the house. The confirmation that you are going to get through amateur porn by vastly watching that is going to be problematic because you're going to perceive as quite normal misogynist actions towards your girlfriend or towards your friends who are not the same ethnicity and you are, because you're not going to perceive people who film these videos as something far away, something different, something untrue, and something that's not part of your life. Secondly, how we have the consensual troubles about posting revenge porn and that kind of things, and even if it is regulated, this problem. The comparative here is also that, for example, even if it would be possible to post on browsers would probably not allow low quality videos or certain type of videos appear on their websites, firstly, but secondly, it would be a lot easier to move out video where there would not be where there would not be consent to. And thirdly, you could have called it accountable if it kept posting the video which didn't give consent to. And thirdly, how it's unfair to its industry and how it's fair to people who gave consent to harm their body integrity, to expose their body in the manner of diminishing their privacy to earn money. So we beg you to protest.
Alright, and thank the Deputy Prime Minister for the speech. Now I welcome the Deputy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We see that the negatives outlined by opening government regarding the porn industry have to do with narratives. Narratives wholly. They talk about the submission of women within porn. They talk about the racial fetishization. They talk about the ideas of good sex. The narratives that the commercial porn industry shows, what they think porn 2.0 is leading to. The problem with their case is that on their side of the house, they want one actor, the commercial porn industry, to control these narratives, whereas the comparison is that with porn 2.0, you have other actors, individuals, users that are uploading porn, combating the narratives that they outline as a problem with the porn industry. I'll go through each of these problems within my speech and talk about how we have a better narrative on our side of the house, and at least a more diversified narrative where people can view different types of porn and combat what we think is like the negative, more pernicious aspects of porn solely coming from the commercial side of the porn industry. We don't regret the rise of porn 2.0 because the comparison is then you just have porn before porn 2.0, which is the commercial aspect, which is the one narrative coming out of porn, which we think is negative. I'll talk to you about some points of refutation and rebuild Scott's case about the uploaders, why it's positive in that way, and for the viewers, and why this all combats the idea of narratives. Okay, to go into some points of refutation. First, he talks about the commercial porn industry is diverse enough, right? He kind of just makes this assumption and says, well, it's diverse enough that we maybe have some different types of tabs in porn 1.0, and that's fine. And the problem with this is that the commercial porn is solely for a profit. When you have any type of profit level, when you have any type of company that's profit-driven, we think that they'll always target what they think the majority wants, right? So you will never have a profit-driven machine that tries to meet the demands of very niche minority markets. It's the same reason that pharmaceuticals will never create drugs for very diverse or niche types of diseases. So you think that, while these diverse niches might be small in some regards, that there's so many types of diverse niches that they add up to a large percentage of our population. There's a wide variety of body types, of different types of sexualities, and while there's maybe small individually, they make up a large percent of our population that we think the commercial porn industry will never target because it's not profitable for them to make that type of porn. We don't think it's diverse enough. Users are diverse in what they upload. I'll talk to you about that later on. He talks about this idea of revenge porn. This is a good point. We think this is to some level, this is a problem with porn 2.0. But we think that the porn industry and porn 2.0 websites like Pornhub and YouPorn are taking steps to combat revenge porn to a large extent. They understand that this is a problem. So when users are identified as not consenting to this porn being uploaded, these types of websites give users an avenue to get rid of them. We don't think they always get rid of them to the best, because the internet is pretty manipulative, that they can still perpetuate within the internet. But we think that to some extent the porn industry is combating this type of porn and ensuring that consent is given when porn is uploaded. In the same way, we think when the porn industry is very good in terms of consensual porn. We saw them getting rid of James Dean when the scandal came out about him raping women. In the last point he talks about the idea of porn industry is hurt. We think the porn industry has had to diversify. It's not hurt to the extent that they want it to. This is also a point that falls on their side of the house, fine. But we think in the weighing of the narratives that porn 2.0 has brought to you compared to some marginal negative to the porn industry, we don't think this is very important on this debate. So when you look at the comparison, right, between porn before porn 2.0 and the narratives that porn 2.0 created, I'm going to talk about this idea of uploaders that Scott talked to you about. Okay? When you have porn before 2.0, I'm going to talk about this comparison throughout, right? Porn before and what we don't look at it. You just had, the only uploader was commercial websites and commercial industries, things like Brazzers uploading porn to the porn industry. That means they get to solely create the narrative. They're the only uploaders that get to create the narrative of what it means to be in porn, the types of bodies that then can be in porn. We think this is problematic for then viewers who then can only see certain types of body types within the porn industry. They can only see certain types of porn being represented. We think porn is very important to people. We think lots of people watch porn. What is most important within porn, outside the realm of like sexuality, we think is people being able to identify at some level with porn that they watch. We think that's beneficial because then they view, because we think porn is a part of our society. We accept it as part of our society. Everyone has sex, like most people have sex. And so when people are able to identify themselves within porn, we think it's very important because it helps to some sense, it helps to some sense their sense of identity of being viewed as okay in their sexuality. We think the same reason that the internet, things like Reddit, have been so helpful for other forms of sexuality, where people can identify their sexuality in subreddits and groups and like form some kind of communities around their sexuality or their diversities. The same comparison can be made for porn 2.0 within the realm of sexuality and within the realm of porn. Yeah.
When there exists a large external body who compete with professional porn actors who exist at the moment, what do you think happens to the ability of the professionals to negotiate for better conditions or better pay?
Yeah. We think the porn industry has had to change to some extent. We think that the outlines that you're probably going to talk about of the porn industry's changing to have much more like younger women perform and quickly change women and throw them or discard them it is a definite negative effect of the porn industry. If you believe side government's idea of the porn industry being hurt by Porno 2.0, we think any positive matter that Backhalf's going to bring to you about the porn industry, the commercial porn industry, becoming much more pernicious because of Porn 2.0, goes away, because if you believe Front Half's argument is that porn industry is just deconstructing, is that they're starting to lose value and eventually they'll disappear, right? That's all side government's argument, is that the porn industry is getting hurt and then they'll eventually eradicate. So any arguments that Backhalf brings to you about the porn industry being more pernicious, we think don't exist, because the porn industry is, if you believe side government's argument, the porn industry is getting eradicated. Like, the profits are being hurt, and so we think that any arguments they bring you are going to be a wash to some extent. But if you look at the comparison, we don't regret Porn 2.0, because when the viewers are then able to see their porn, we think this affects it in two ways. One are viewers that already view more pernicious types of porn. We think these are things like interracial porn, like fetishization of certain races within interracial porn, where you stereotypically have black men with very big penises, like having sex with blonde women. We think now when they go into these tabs that are stereotypically very pernicious, they see different types of races within the tab of interracial. They see different types of races having sex. We think it affects them at some level when they're seeing a diversity of different types of interracial couples having sex. In the second way, we think people that have very diverse body types or very diverse types of sexuality can now go and search porn that meets their needs. They can actually go and search porn that they can identify with. We think this is very powerful in the narrative that people view with themselves within the porn industry. This is very powerful with the narrative that the porn industry has. We think that you don't have only porn that is submissive to women, you don't only have porn that is racially fetishizing, and you don't only have porn that is one idea of what good sex is, and that's probably like to pleasure a man. For those reasons, we thank you.
Alright, I thank the Deputy Leader of Opposition for the speech, and now that concludes the open house debate. Now to continue the debate, I invite the member of GUF to the side of the closing. Thank you.
I honestly simply do not believe that the average person who uploads pornography to one of these websites is doing so with some sort of very profound artistic intent to show some diverse new kind of pornography or sex expression that just hasn't been there before. More realistically, it's probably just the sex that person had last Wednesday, right? That is the bulk of this material. What we're going to tell you from closing government is that what this specifically does is forces the commercial porn industry at a very specific market, the market of realistic-looking sex, in a way that is very damaging to the sort of normative stuff opening opposition wanted to talk about. Because at the end of the day, if someone is going to be producing porn that is meant to show us what sex should realistically like and try to convince us that it's important, we prefer it was done with a studio with like production guys, rather than someone's bedroom in whatever happens to be the way they're able to portray that. Three pieces of rebuttal. First of all, to niche stuff and diversity, because apparently the market cannot solve for some kinds of things. In the first instance, we think there's a very low cost of porno, for instance, ballooner in the industry. Like, I don't understand this. Like, what, if you're sexually attracted to balloons or whatever, opening up a position we want to talk about, right? Honestly, a studio could probably produce one video of a person like playing with a balloon at very low cost, and then get all of the commercial benefits from the people who wanted that sort of thing to exist, right? But secondly, if you actually care about these people with their bizarre sexual fetishes, presumably the quality is relevant, right? Like the person who's sort of sitting alone with a balloon in his home is probably going to produce like pretty dodgy stuff relative to what a studio might actually portray or present if they are able to do this in a commercial way. So if that's your concern, we think we're doing well. Second of all, to issues about sexual health, because there was sort of a niche part of the opening opposition text where it said, look, there's an important normative value that sort of pornography can have insofar as it might convince people to use condoms. The responses to this, there are problems. First of all, it is unclear to me why the average sexual encounter uses a condom, for instance, right? It is not clear to me why if you're having sex with your significant other, you presumably do not think they have an STD, or you might be using other forms of birth control, why it is likely that a condom would be used in an encounter, or indeed why you would make a big deal of that condom, or why it would be visible or something that people might actually pay attention to in that sexual encounter. So I'm not sure that helps. But second of all, it's actually really damaging to sexual, pornographic professionals if you force them to use condoms. Like, why? Because if you have to shoot 20 scenes in a day, and you have latex grinding against your genitals and that sort of contact. Well, legitimately, this is the argument pornographic people make for why they don't use condoms. Is that it's very painful and damages their genitals. Right? If the normative effect of their policies, they cause sexual professionals to have a lower quality of job standards as a result of it, that's a harm, and it's unclear why any person actually watching porn is likely to translate condom use in the 3 seconds it might be on screen before it goes to the sides of it to what they actually do in the bedroom. Right? We simply don't think that it's likely to translate effectively, but it does hurt people who are in the industry. Third of all, on spreading, let's move on to some substantive integrate things as we go. So first of all, why is this bad for people in the porn industry, right? We think that in general the porn industry has a huge degree of difficulty. Right? People, it attracts them people from more disadvantaged backgrounds to a large extent. They work in very dodgy conditions. They're competing in the industry that can actively cause lots of damage to them, right? They are fighting for sometimes doing sexual things they don't want to do simply to get their money. Why is the competition that Porn 2.0 has added been harmful? First of all, because when more of a product exists, it means that it is more, it is simply less clicks on your every individual video that you produce, right? Simply for the fact that other people are looking at different videos, which means you have less money available to you. So these people, and these are a very large quantity of people who are very disadvantaged, have the amount of money they have on the table at the end of the day diminished. That's not something to smirk at, right? It's not something these are people's lives are being destroyed. But second of all, far more damagingly, is the sorts of behaviours they have to engage in are actually chained very perniciously. Because at the moment, you could be in the porn industry and do lots of relatively standard sexual practices and still have some sort of market to corner, right? But when the amateur porn industry or people uploading videos cut that away from you, to become someone who is prominent or someone who has a niche to sell, you have to do strange things, right? That's exactly the reason why anal sex became a big deal in the porn industry, right? Because once some people started doing the rest of the material, that volume increased, you have to do something to distinguish yourself, right? That forces people into sexual practices they don't want to then translate into actual sexual practice in the real world, because those are the things that very prominent porn companies are putting out in the public sphere, right? And additionally, I've already made the argument about condoms. Last of all, material about norm setting through pornography. What I do, sure.
So note the entire point is of clash. Why? Because what you analyze is not unique to this specific kind of porn, but rather to competition in the porn industry as a whole.
Yes, so the specific difficulty is that we think that porn companies, as we want to explain, when they're producing things to a high quality, occupy the amateur sphere, do a good job at norm setting, right? The problem is when people with a lower standard, we'll talk about in a second, enter that industry, they cause a lot of the associated harms. So, realistically, we think one of the biggest ways that porn affects society is the way through it sets sexual norms, right? You literally cannot find control groups of people, and you try and do studies people who have not watched pornography, right? That is just a thing that exists in our society today. Why does this make it worse? First of all, because it pushes mainstream producers away from realistic sex. Because there is some market of people who want to look at this sort of amateur things on what the average realistic sexual encounter would look like. But Porn 2.0 shuts them out of the market, or at least it hugely diminishes the size of that market, right? Because now there is a severe degree of competition. The consequence of that is they have to produce something appealing to a particular sexual desire, or they're more likely to shift away from those sorts of things. And given that the prime consumers of pornography or whatever tend to be sort of young men who already have particular conceptions of what women's role in a sexual encounter is, or have internalized certain things through other mechanisms, they default back to some of the most sexist norms that exist, right? Because that is the default thing they know will sell in the industry when they're trying to corner a specific market. Here is the difficulty though, right? And where a lot of O's material about sort of black women producing pornography falls down. Those people could, for instance, have been producing realistic-looking sex using a diverse range of people, right, and occupying that same sphere. In particular, when they are the ones doing that, in the first instance, it is likely to be sexier because they actually know what they're doing, pursue it again and then start to internalize some of the normative values you're trying to. But second of all, they're more likely to sort of be in that industry for the long run, or have some sort of holistic conception of what they're trying to do with that pornography. So for instance, right, if the comparison is in this debate is between selective studios producing, say, porn with black women and amateur people putting that stuff online, we would prefer that it was the studio doing it, right? Because they know what they're trying to, have a particular message, they can construct their porn in certain ways, they can focus on certain elements and do that repeatedly and in a way that disseminates throughout society. Amateur people have a very disjoint conception of what they're trying to do in every individual sexual plan. It's not something repetitive, it doesn't create sort of a norm or a theme of pornography that might actually dissipate and change behaviours in the way you need to do, given that realistically the people who have the most influence in the industry are always going to be the people who own the websites and produce the branded, most visible pornography, right? So if this debate is a comparison between those two worlds, we prefer the pornography that was sitting on, was produced by people who knew what they were doing and had some sort of overarching conception they wanted to push through into the future. This is awful for people in the pornographic industry who are one of the most important people in this debate, and it does not actually affect the normative change that opposition benches have to set their case on. That's why we propose.
Alright, thank you, member of for the speech. Now I welcome member
Dear panel, I'm going to be 2 points in extension. First, I'm going to talk to you about why porn 2.0 leads to significantly less exploitation of women within the porn industry. Second of all, I'm going to talk to you about why we get actually better perception of how sex is supposed to look in society, and dealing specifically with how porn shapes people's preferences and not only reflects them. Before that, most of my material will be directly engaged with what you heard from CG, but 3 extreme points for rebuttal. Firstly, note their entire assumption when they tell us people in the industry are now likely to have less money, that are likely to be pushed into doing more extreme things. Relies on the notion that these people are going to have less bargaining power now that you have more competition. We say the opposite is true. Obviously, when you have more employers in the market, when you have more people who are willing to offer you a job, when the entrance barriers into this market are smaller, you have more of a competition, you have more of a bargaining power for these people. I'm going to analyze this in my first point, but basically, if I show you this, their point falls. Secondly, they tell us, but people won't, then they tell us, but when there is, their notion is basically this. When the 2.0 in porn industry shows people what they actually want to see, then and people watch it. The regular porn industry leaves this market. We don't understand why when you see that a lot of people want to consume a certain product, and you have a competition over that product, your tendency to abandon the market. Specifically, when they tell us themselves that the porn industry has specific advantages also in portraying this normal sort of porn or pornography, meaning they can do it better in more quality. All these things that they want to happen are more likely to happen when you have more people getting into watching this porn in the first place, which I'm going to get to in my second point. Let's talk about why we have significantly less exploitation. Because we said when you have 2 or 3 big studios, where they are the only place you can work. Any other place you decide to work for profit in porn is basically prostitution and is illegal. We're saying that you have significantly less of it, you have more of an option from these big studios to first of all keep them most of the profit and pay very, very low salaries to the people you employ simply because they don't have many other choices. You can very easily coordinate prices and salaries between those companies. Secondly, this is very important. These studios are controlled by men. They are controlled by men and they are controlled by narrative, the sort of narratives men have on women, on sex, and what women and men's roles are within sex. We're saying this is critical. And obviously, these studios have more leverage on you in saying what sorts of sexual acts you can and cannot do. Now, why does this change on our side of the house? First, we say that you have more potential employers. The fact that you can get payment even 2.0, like in YouTube, for views to for commercials and for views to your video, means that people are more able to have diverse ways in which to do this. If they want to talk about specifically young women with hardly any power, note that under their side of the house, in the traditional porn industry, they get very little money. What does this tell us? This tells us that even if they can get some money through these videos, they are already better off because they get they basically get the same minimum wage that they would get in the porn industry, plus they get the ability to control the acts that they're doing, to have more of an autonomy on their own body during the filming, during the set. We're saying this is critical. Moreover, we're saying that for the people who are more advanced in this industry, the female stars in this industry, for example, are now more able to decide what they do want to do. Because if Sasha Grey decides that she wants to do her own videos instead of going with the commercial studios, they know she can do that. Therefore, she has more of an ability to tell, I want the act to look in this way and not in another way that you would prefer. Or moreover, this is critical, she's more able to speak out against the negative phenomena in the porn industry. This happens much more under our side of the house. Moreover, we're saying that we have more of an ability, because you reduce entrance barriers, you have more of a chance of companies actually being owned by women, being owned by the actors in these industries. Why is this critical? Because first of all, you're getting people who you get less exploitation just by the fact that they are working on this together, that they don't want to exploit each other, but you also get more of an ability for women, for example, to reflect the preferences that they actually have in sex. You get more of an ability to do that through the commercial studios, through their bargaining power, and also through other sorts of companies and other views. Before I go into my second point, yes, Claude.
So, uploading a video doesn't pay you a wage in the same way acting in a porn video. All you get is the piddling amount of ad revenue in a heavily oversubscribed market from the 300 people who might
Thank you very much. Basically, what we're saying is, for the great majority of women you want to talk about, those who don't have options, this is basically what they would get in the porn industry by your own analysis, meaning that they don't have the bargaining power, they can't actually demand high wages there. For the women for the actors who are already very high-end in the porn industry, everything I said about bargaining power applies, and you have to take that into consideration. Let's talk about reflecting preferences, because basically opening competition gives us a good line here about when you get more uploaders, you can get more liberating content. To this, governments have two objections. First of all, they tell us people want to watch the exploited stuff. This is the first issue. And secondly, they tell us that most uploaders are still going to upload terrible things. Why are these two things wrong? How are preferences shaped? And why do we get a better situation under our side of the house? Because we say that people starting to watch porn, and as I mentioned here, people at a very young age who start to watch this, are not likely to go and want to watch very exploitative relationships or sexual acts. We honestly don't know why that is true. We think they'll be more averse to scenes of violence or to things that exploit the other person. They are more likely to just want to fantasize over their next door neighbor and not the beauty model that the porn industry is. Why is this critical? Because when they are exposed, however, to the unified model that the porn studios give, what they are likely to, they attach that with their sexual arousal. They attach that to the fact that this is something that's arousing as soon as they masturbate to it, or they are actually aroused by the specific porn. When these people are more able in the first place to get to have other models, to have models that are more equal, they are more likely to approach in the first place. It's enough to have some feminist organizations uploading some things. It's enough to have some teenagers uploading things that teenagers do want to see. This is enough in order to first of all, get more people to view this, and second of all, get them traditional studios to compete on those grounds. Meaning not to create the very exploitative preferences, but to actually create, to show preferences that are more generally acceptable to these people. We say this is when you get the change. Besides that, when you get more actors who have the control, as I said, you also get them shaping the content, which we believe is a more respectful content, the content that creates less of the problems that governments want to talk about. For all these reasons, we are proud to oppose.
All right, thank you, member of Austin's speech. Now, please compliment and like the government.
It was an important concession made within that speech that even the people who upload this content aren't going to be looking for the kind of artistic material or norm-changing or groundbreaking material that Open Opposition wants to tell us about, but instead they were going to be forced to cater to what was available in terms of the interests of people there. So by pinning their case on commercial interests, what they've conceded is that all of the norms that they believe exist are still going to be at play and are still going to undermine all of the ability of people to make a place in the industry and have that be a career that is worthwhile for them. 2 points in this speech. First, I'm going to look at how Porn 2.0 affects the industry. Secondly, I'm going to look at how this affects norms. So first, to the industry. So in order to have negotiating power, a necessary precondition to be able to have bargaining ability is that there's some sort of profits to be able to bargain over. So that means that in industries where there are aspects of monopoly and there are large profits being made, you have a strong ability to be able to organise and bargain for better conditions for yourself. This means basic things like getting access to better pay, but many things that are particularly important within the porn industry, like being able to veto doing certain sexual acts, and being able to have access to sexual health clinics and other such fringe benefits which are important to individuals who work within that industry. What this means is that where there is a more competitive market, where there are a range of smaller providers rather than larger conglomerates, you don't have the same ability to negotiate in order to improve your own conditions. And what that means is it makes things markedly worse for the people who work within the porn industry, who now don't have the ability to have a say in the types of acts that they take part in within their videos, and as a result have a far worse career as a result. Why is this important? So they tell us that you're still able to have an ability to make money because what you're able to do is go and upload your videos online and gain ad revenue. So note firstly that ad revenue is very low because typically when someone goes onto a porn website, they're not going to get distracted by whatever flash product an ad at the side is likely to be advertising. So the rate at which people click through to ads is actually relatively low. What that means is that you don't get much ad revenue coming through. And as a result, additionally, because there are relatively few sites who dominate the porn market, they're able to give relatively low rates of ad payment to people who upload videos, knowing that they have a conglomerate position where they're able to gain profit as a result. So what you have is an asymmetry. You have large video providers who are able to use this monopoly power, and you have a diversity of individuals who have no negotiating power as a result. What we would prefer is for a smaller group of individuals who are more able to bargain and collectivise to be able to work with a smaller group of companies and be able to negotiate for conditions as a result. Where you have a less competitive industry, you have a greater ability for people to be able to gain the conditions that suit them and as a result have a better life as a result. Let's now look at the norm-changing material that the opposition bench have wanted to base their cases around. So note that the average individual who uploads content to sites like YouPorn isn't an individual who sets out with a particular artistic niche that they want to fill or a particularly groundbreaking conception. It's more likely just to be someone who gets a thrill out of the idea of having the sex that they had recently being uploaded to the internet and get some sort of thrill about the fact that other people are watching them and might be enjoying seeing them engage in that sex. That is the typical individual who uploads their content. It's not likely to be someone with a particular artistic conception. As a result, what happens is the production qualities tend to be relatively low because it's not as if someone sets up their own studio and as a result then produces porn for it. It's just someone who happens to have a bedroom or happen to have a mattress set up in their garage where they can then have sex and upload that. Closing.
So what we're saying is the person uploading himself having sex is just a much better perception for people to watch than people exploiting each other and all the other acts that you're talking about in traditional pornography.
Okay, so even if that sex is happening, it is being uploaded, so we'll go on that assumption for now, it's unlikely to be that sort of material that is watched by people. Because note that when you still log onto these sites, the main things which are displayed are still likely to be commercial productions which are more likely to come to the top of search results. There's still likely to be those same things, and that's why the material that we brought you about the industry is particularly important. But it might be that certain productions are able to eventually come to the top of search results if they're really popular. But note that those are going to be bound by the exact same preferences which drive commercial pornography. So if individuals' preferences have been moulded by being able to view particularly extreme sexual acts within commercial pornography, it's going to be the same sort of extremity of material that they search for within amateur pornography. So even if someone either one is open opposition says decides they have a particularly artistic conception, or as closing tells us just happen to be having sex in a way that promotes norms that we want to get across, then those aren't going to be the results that are going to come out. What is going to happen is that the norms that people face within commercial pornography are going to dictate what content is going to be able to come out as a result. What other individuals do we think are going to be particularly likely to upload material as a result? For example, they talk, like closing opposition mentioned that teenagers might upload content as a result. We think this is terrible that you reduce the cost of people being able to move into the industry. We think it's terrible that someone could potentially screw over their life by being able to upload content as a teenager and make a huge mistake thereby. That's far less likely to occur when you have an industry where you have to move into and sign contracts and get set up for, when there are those kind of large setup costs that make you really think about whether it's a decision you want to be invested in, as opposed to just being able to decide it'll be a laugh to upload a video that you happen to film that might be able to get a few views as a result. That is the kind of reason that this is so terrible for individuals who might be tempted to upload their content. Because uploading a video on these kind of sites can have a huge effect on your life. If other people are able to see that, it could affect your career prospects, it could affect how people think of you, and those are decisions that we don't want people to be able to walk into blindly. And that's why having a more set up and professional industry, where you do have an ability of people to be able to actually make the decision to opt in and then bargain over the kinds of rights that they want to be able to have, are so important for this. Note, for example, note as well that another reason it's likely to just be sex that people happen to have rather than set up with commercial or artistic values is it's really difficult to coordinate with someone in order to have sex on camera in order to have it uploaded to the internet. Because that's probably not a conversation many people have. That's why it's particularly efficient to have organisations called commercial porn companies, which coordinate different individuals who might be interested in those actions. The commercial porn industry is by no means perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better than the free-for-all that opposition support.
Alright, I think the government for the speech and now concludes that opposition is fair to support. I invite you all to continue.
Okay? So, top of this debate really likes the words comparative and narratives. OO starts the debate by saying the following things: Luna's identifications, narratives, and how an African American woman can now upload in order to change the entire sexual preferences of our entire society. Unfortunately for open opposition, this is going to be the last time that I'm going to refer to the case. How come? Because the PY that we get from closing and the effect that we get from opening are dual. One, why isn't going to be an incentive for the African American woman to actually upload the content and who is going to be the provider? Two, how the narratives are going to be actually shaped all in all. Like, is misogyny is going to be more commonplace after it? Is the norms of what is the value in gender society is going to actually change life? Therefore, two simple questions in this debate. Firstly, what is the incentives that are going to be placed on the industry via this model? Secondly, why are we going to get less of an abuse by and large with the perception of sex in the society? Last, one point of experience about they're always going to become in clash. The other last point of teenagers uploading porn to the internet and then screwing up their entire life. Teenagers have a million ways of screwing up their life. So we're not sure why it's going to happen here, specifically why teenagers are going to do it so permanently. And moreover, if this is going to be the case, we're not sure that by weighing this point actually carries weight. First question, why is it actually going to change the porn industry and the incentives? Two things to note here before going to the clash. Firstly, you have to ask yourself what is unique as the judges here to specifically porn 2.0. Because a lot of the analysis that we get from the government in this debate is what is unique about the uploading of porn to the internet by and large. This is not green motion, and this is the vast majority of the analysis we actually pointed to John in the POI. Secondly, governments presumably do not regret the internet. While they're talking about things as revenge porn on their sides, this is something that if they can actually regulate, it should be banned. It's not a unique problem of specifically uploading porn in this manner. So what we get from CG is the following thing, right? We're going to get less money, and less money is the problem. Note, again, this is something which is against competition in the porn industry as a whole. Why does it matter? Because regardless of porn 2.0, the competition in the porn industry will have bound to go to the internet anyway. This is a huge premise on their side of the house. How come? Exactly like the music industry and what has happened throughout the entire world. Barriers have gone down, other competitors would have done the same. Distribution is easier via the internet, right? So people would have gone to the commercial put of ads anyway on each side of the house. This is not unique to the motion. So everything that we get from OG as well, about normalization and about porn being more prevalent, is off clash in this debate via the same circumstance, because porn would have gone online anyway, distribution would have gone online anyway. But even if it goes online, even if it ups the demand of pornography, we actually do not care about what we get from CG as well. How come? Because if porn becomes more prevalent by the analysis of open government in this debate, that means that there is more money in traditional porn as well, because there is more consumers in the porn. It means there is more of a leverage for negotiation, which is the assumptions of the closing government's case in this debate. So everything that they are saying is actually reversed on its head. But moreover, we say that if actually OG said that regulation is something which is possible in this debate, and all that CG actually cares about is making sure that there are workers inside the industry who can cater for their conditions, why can't we instill a minimum wage? Why can't we ensure that even if we're going to more slave porn, we can still maintain a proper life? But moreover is our extension here, because when we say that even if you negate the idea of specifically the fact that barriers are lower, it means that more companies are going to be controlled by women. It means that more feminist porn, there is not going to be an incentive to do this, because people, the feminist movement now has a clear incentives into going and finding these things, specifically these things. Look, this is a huge hole that we fill in the open opposition's case, because now we show you how it is actually going to change, because people are going to control these sites. More people are going to be owned by the artists themselves, because it's going to cost less money by and large, which means that now Jameson or whatever, insert every name that you want for a woman, this is more likely to control the content that they produce at the end of the day. Moreover, regarding to our battle here for CG, note, if they are going to be so poor, into the extent that we are now not going to be able, that the actors are going to be so poor in the fact that they cannot regulate, that they cannot negotiate their position, they're claiming that a monopoly is better in terms of providing and catering for its employees. This is counterintuitive as hell. How can they negotiate if they're so poor and they're coming from these neighborhoods? We simply have no idea how they're going to negotiate themselves if they have three producers in the market, rather than the idea that there are three competitions that they can use for more companies. But note, and here's a crucial thing, because when OG talks about regulation, and this is something that we pick up specifically on our extension, is the idea of why and how it is going to change the market. Because the normative value, the bottom line of why this is very specifically the point of regulating, is saying how it is going to shape our sexual preferences as a society. This is specifically the second question in this debate. Besides the point that we do not get analysis of why submissiveness specifically in porn is going to actually change these sexual preferences of the society by and large. This is a huge hole in the cases of both of the government. We're going to actually take CG's logic and show why by our extension it's going to be reversed yet again. Because what they say, are now quoting Tom, we're going to cater for what is available. People are going to put just a thrill that they have shown online last week and just put their sex on Wednesday. Now I'm quoting John. This is excellent. Why it is excellent? Because what he say is the following thing. When I am young, what I'm likely to say is what is normalized to me right now. This is something that you should know. Yes.
How does it affect norms if the small quantity of studio-produced videos with black women are crowded out by the same porn that guys are going to be searching for anyway?
Again, I can't hear. The last part.
So it's going to be crowded out by the same porn.
So we simply do not agree. Why? Because the vast majority of people, and there is no clear incentive for the porn industry to create things as bareback porn without sex, as we give without focusing on POI, if people are just not going to buy it. Also, what we should care about is how sexual preferences are actually created. What we give you is a crucial point here. Because when I'm young, when I'm 30, when I join the porn industry online, what I seek for, what I cater for is not as an actor, as a consumer. What I seek for is something which resembles what I believe is normal right now. Which means that I'm going to try looking for a girl that looks like my next door neighbor. It means that I'm going to look for like someone for my height. This is something which is going to be much more likely under our side. Which means that now, even if passively, people are going to put this for a thrill, I am going to bear and get an understanding of why we're going to see a greater variety specifically there. Note, if what you're getting from them is that they're going to be crowded out because they have a better term, if 30% of the market, is now going to create an upload that is going to up the demand for regular sex. This explains why they're going to have an incentive to just use their advantage as companies to produce better quality, regular porn, quote unquote, which shows why everything that we want to achieve is actually going to be better because more consumers are going to cater for specifically these kinds of porn. It's going to shirk the values because this is what normal, this is what people are going to seek. This is what we feel, this is why you should definitely oppose this motion.
Alright, I thank the operator for the speech and thank you for the great view across the house and shake hands.
Yes.